No America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis the 13th. Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head. My top niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day peppering America overseas. Pension for the workers, nigga, please. Embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement. I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut. Foreclosure that close out the tenement. I twist words like a speech impediment. I hope you got good credit, bitch. If not, better get a new job with benefits. While I play golf with niggas to get cheddar with. New money buys brand new carrots. My old money busts your great grandparents. You got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at you. I own every gold mine in South Africa. Thanks, baby, you made me $1 billion. Plus, I own a building.
So,
each one of my children's...
this is highly anticipated, and since I announced that the possibility of it happening, but I have on the show today Fritz Springmeier, who has wrote, what is it, like 20 books, I think he wrote, right?
Yes.
Yes, and of course, I think the most known book you've ever wrote was 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and there's also much more work Fritz Springmeier has done, and one of the biggest questions I know is just that, because I know that wasn't your original name, was Fritz Springmeier, and I'm just wondering, does Fritz Springmeier have some significance? Is why you changed your name to Fritz Springmeier?
Yes, it does, but not according. It has nothing to do with all the wild theories out there. The name has to do with it had special meaning for me, and it would take a long time to explain, but the meaning that it had to me was something positive in the middle of really negative events, and it's like when you're in a dark tunnel and there's a light at the end that you see, and so those people that know my life, they would know why that it had that significance. So I chose it as something positive. It had positive meaning to me, but it had there's all kinds of wild theories out there which are totally bogus and don't have anything to do with anything grounded in reality. So anyway, I've gone through a lot of really heavy-duty negativity in my life. And at the time that I changed my name, what I was trying to do is I was trying to switch from all the negatives that had happened. I said, okay, that happened in the past, and I'm going to move forward in a positive direction. And so I chose something that had a lot of positive meaning to me. But people would have to know the details of my life as to why that was the situation.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, I've surfed through the internet, and when you look up pretty much any famous truther to any extent, there's always going to be series about, controlled opposition, secretly working for the CIA, or I don't know what to the extent of the series that they are about you. The original name was Victor, right? Wasn't it Victor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was your original name, and it's we could go down, that path, but there's a difference between exposing, evil in our government. The conspiracy theories are actually conspiracy facts. Then there's just theorizing things just because for the hell of it, and that's what I feel is almost like, with the series about you. They don't have much, there's not much reality to them. You can prove any of that stuff that they try to say about you, and I think you already have callers, and I knew there'd be callers pretty quickly into the show, and I'm just gonna tell them to hang on to about 8:30, and then I'll probably open up the phone lines, because I just want to have some of the questions that I could think of. And here's another big question that comes to mind, is that whole scandal about you, the whole scandal about you being sent to prison. You spent time in prison. That you go with the people who say that you were set up. Do you believe you were set up? And if you were, please explain the whole situation, because that is something significant.
Yes. My attorney asked his friend who had been in federal law enforcement what the deal was about me being prosecuted, and his friend who was retired from federal law enforcement said that they had been trying to put me in prison for a long time, and it was a contrived thing. And then just last night when I was on the phone, somebody was asking about my 8 years in prison, and I was trying to explain to them that if I had been treated like a normal criminal, I would have gotten far better treatment. But when they took me to prison, they treated me like I was a big terrorist, and I got special treatment. So it had nothing to do with me being a criminal. It had everything to do with what I've been doing against the New World Order. But, there's a whole new set of leadership in the Illuminati, and they've got a more gentler attitude towards me than the old school ones that didn't have any love for me.
Also, I saw that, that defamation, that's what the best word for what they tried to do to you. They had these Portland papers I saw back from 2003 when it actually happened. They were claiming that you were a white supremacist, which, it's kind of funny because today I just saw those pictures with, you being, looked pretty friendly with those Asian Japanese people. So, I don't think you're a white supremacist. I've even seen you talk against, racism before. And, that's the kind of, did you see that in the paper?
Oh, yes, it was yellow journalism. They just made up lies left and right. Well, when they raided my place, it was a fishing expedition, and they must have spent at least, I sat there and figured it up in my mind, they must have spent at least $90,000 on this huge military-type raid on my place, and then they didn't find anything. So the police didn't go to the press and say, oh, we made a big mistake. No, what they said is we busted a big drug dealer. And then they just made up these big lies. And then people were saying on the internet, oh, that's how Springmeier came up with all of his books. He was on drug trips. Totally ridiculous. I've never used drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I'm not a drug user. And they just make up these lies left and right. And then all these people that hate what I'm doing just soak it up like it's the gospel truth, and it's just all lies,
Yeah, and that wasn't even the charge that they gave you. It's just they just put a bunch of, a bunch of bogus stuff came out at the time about you, and it was purely because you belong to the, because you're against the New World Order. They're going to treat people that are against the New World Order as terrorists. It's like Kissinger once said, talking about is that terrorists are really just people who are against the international system. And that's what I think applies best here. See, that's one of the main elites right there. I mean, he's the organizer of the Bilderberg Committee. You know, he organizes the Bilderberg Committee every year, which, of course, is where 100 something top CEOs, world leaders, that kind of thing, people that are involved with the New World Order meet up. And so there's one of the top ones right there themselves, saying something that relates right to your situation. And, you say you were treated as if you were a terrorist. Like, what did they do to you that was, that you believe was special treatment only because of the books you wrote about and other things you did?
Well, when an inmate goes to federal prison, there are about 6 rules. These are laws that Congress passed. They're not something that the BOP, Bureau of Prisons, makes up, but they're things that the BOP is legally obligated to do. And the law says that they are to keep you as close to your home as possible. In other words, like, there's a prison here in Oregon, and since I'm from Portland area, I should be kept in a Oregon federal prison, right? Well, that didn't happen for me. And then most inmates are allowed to spend their time in one prison, but they shuffled me around from one prison to another, sometimes secretly. And just a lot of things like that. I had friends that wanted to come visit me, and they ended up, I had a friend, he's been a Christian brother and a friend since 1975. When we first became friends, we were Christian brothers doing street evangelism together. Well, he later became a lawyer and then became an administrative judge. So he's a federal administrative judge, and he's trying to get permission to visit me, and they kept ignoring our request. And the only way he got a visit is he had to use the power of a senator. And when the senator called over to the warden, my friend got permission to visit me in 5 minutes. But that's the kind of stuff that we had to do. A normal inmate would never have to have a senator get involved just to have a friend come and visit. They just did all kinds of mean, nasty things like that.
Yes, because, again, the elite is going to treat, they almost have a new word for, people that are rebelling against the government, and, they just use many defamatory words, but one of them they call domestic terrorist. And ever since that 95 Oklahoma City bombing, they've gotten Americans all fearful. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're just using terror, to put Americans into submission pretty much and make them, and pretty much at that point, they'll just start, turning on their neighbors and stuff like that. Remember I was talking about, kind of a little bit of a topic of this show, is that America's falling to fascism. Where it's the same trend that Germany happened. In Germany, they did 2 major events that, the two events I can think of that were, false flags. And, one of the major ones that I could think of was the Reichstag fire, of course. That they tried to blame it on they tried to blame it on Vanderloob. I think he was a Polish, they said he was in the Communist Party over there, and make this threat. Actually the Germans set it on fire. After setting it on fire, that was after they put the emergency power for Adolf Hitler, and that's when the dictatorial reign of power started for him. And then after that, right before the Polish invasion, the Germans dressed up as Polish soldiers, and then they attacked a radio station there, and they were trying to claim that actually to the Germans that the Polish had invaded first. That way they could invade Poland, which that was actually about 75 years ago, almost today. I mean, September 1st was when Poland was invaded by Germany. And, there's also another thing to point out, how America fell to fascism, is the corporate and the state, the authoritarian state combining. When the line between those become, blurred between an authoritarian state and corporations, you're definitely in fascism. Even Mussolini, who was pretty much the person who coined it and practically brought it into existence in Italy, said so. That's the combination of corporation and state. Meaning, so you look at America, you have a government that protects corporations like, no other in the world probably. And, again, it's these elites that they are protecting. It's the New World Order is, America is one of the major components of it. They've used the American government, military mostly, to start, going over to the Middle East, fighting wars. Usually it's about banking, installing Rothschild banks. If you don't want to know why America wants to invade Iran, it's not because of all the other threats. And, they've been saying that Iran's going to obtain nuclear weapons for 20 years. And, they said that it's going to be within 6 months for 20 years. And now, really, the truth is they just want to install Rothschild Bank there. The Rothschild, one of the major of the 13 families, which you wrote about in your book. And, that's the gist of what's going on in America right now, is that our military is being used to fight for the Rothschilds, not for freedom and democracy, like, the TV might brainwash you into thinking.
Well, they like to use banner issues like freedom, and see, like in Germany, where you were mentioning Hitler's Germany, they had the term Judenfrei, which means free of Jews. So they were telling the people, we're going to give you freedom, we're going to give you freedom from Jews, as if Jews were this pestilence. So likewise, they'll use today they will say, okay, we're going to give you freedom, and under the banner of freedom, they actually carry out all kinds of weird stuff, just like, freedom for a woman to have freedom with her body, but it's really disdain for human life. If you go back and look at Germany, Stalin's Russia, Mussolini's Italy, there's always this common theme where there's this disdain for human life, and under Hitler, certain people didn't have the right to life, so we see the same thing happening today, where we have these millions of unwanted people being done away with. Those are the unborn babies that are unwanted, and so we already have these trends here going on, and so what you were doing was calling people's attention to, hey, there isn't that much difference between what's going on now and what happened in these other dictatorships, right? And we got to recall, we need to recall that under Mussolini, under Hitler, under FDR, under Stalin, it was all socialism, socialism. What's socialism? Well, it's a good sleight of hand for the elite to control everything, because the people think that they're controlling it, but the elite that are running the socialist government are actually the ones controlling everything. Back in Germany, you couldn't, under Hitler's Germany, you couldn't change jobs or be absent from your job without going to prison. I mean, you could be absent from your job if you had a good excuse, but you couldn't change jobs without permission. That's how controlled things were.
Well, what I must point out, though, is that fascism is quite distinct from socialism. What the United States calls socialist countries are often, fighting the Rothschilds. I mean, they'll say Syria, with Bashar al-Assad, he was a socialist leader, and yet, he was fighting the Rothschilds, and that's why they hired these they've hired these Muslim Brotherhood Islamo-Nazis practically. I mean, these people are on the Free Syrian Army have absolutely no regard for human life, and now are trying to take down Assad. You know, it's kind of it'd be wrong because then you're starting to cut out people that actually are, I think, were legitimate governments that are now being eliminated, and now they're going to be replaced. The New World Order isn't a thing yet. You know, the world hasn't been put under one government, and we don't have, you know, that whole New World Order that we talk about happening because there's a few countries here and there that don't have the banking system. You know, that's what it all comes down to. Once you control the currency, they control your country. It's like I think that was Nathan Rothschild, one from the 1800s, said, give me control of a country's wealth, and I don't care who writes their laws. You know, since they don't have control in a few of these countries, I think it really comes down to just what the banking system, you know, so who's running your banks. If you have Rothschilds running your banks, you're in their system. You know, or if they have influence, you know, they have influence in all but a couple I can think of, you know, Syria, Iran, a few others. You know, it comes down to that. You know, they did that with the Federal Reserve. They were able to take control of our banks here, you know, of our money here, you know, turn money into currency. And now, what is money and currency? How are they different? They seem like, you know, synonyms, but they're not. Money is a metal of intrinsic value, and something backed by that, you know, like U.S. dollar used to be. But after the Federal Reserve became fiat currency, and currency, its wealth is just decided by the people who control it, the owners of the wealth. So what we have now is currency, but not money. We're a moneyless society, but we have currency. And ever since the Federal Reserve, they've been able to put their fiat currency, and really, it's the all-out. It was just the all-out buyout of America. The Federal Reserve. You put a bunch of elite. They lobbied to Woodrow Wilson before he was even elected. Make sure he gets elected, and then he signs the act, putting them in those few billionaires, even trillionaires. You have to remember, Rothschilds have trillions of dollars, but yeah. Now control your country altogether. You know.
Well, I think, Chris, that it's worse than that, because let me call this to your attention. You're speaking about the monetary policy for a country, but if you look at individuals, the Illuminati can come along and bribe most people. Everybody's got a price, it seems like, at a certain point. But if they can't bribe a person with money, they can bribe most men with sexual favors. If you promise a guy that he can have whatever sex he wants, most people jump at the chance, and that's another thing they do. And then they follow that. The third thing that they follow that with is they set up situations where they can blackmail the person. So between bribing and offering them whatever sex that they want and blackmailing them, almost every individual can be controlled, because there's only a few individuals that have a moral standard that will reject all of that. And so on an individual level, they don't even have to go to, like what you're saying, have these control the central bank and all and the currency and all the rest. They can control individuals directly, and if they get the string pullers for any country or any religion or financial string pullers, they still effectively control that. So that's why some of these countries that are controlled opposition, they still have hidden strings in there. They still have strings to control even their opposition.
Yeah, no. Here's what I've seen. It seems to be their MO. Their MO seems to be Machiavellian in nature. Just whatever it takes for them to win. You know, that's what I've noticed. And you know, they have other ways. They can bribe you by information that they now know about you. You know, and if all that fails, then they'll kill you. It's like JFK. You know, they tried to bribe him many ways. but he still stood up to the Federal Reserve and then put that executive order, June 4th, 1963, to give the Treasury the right to print money, and then after that got assassinated by really was Federal Reserve agents. Lee Harvey Oswald was just pretty much the fall guy, and there was other things that contributed to it. I believe it was because he was going to prevent Israel from becoming nuclear. He had people monitoring the Doha nuclear plants in Israel when Ben-Gurion was trying to build nukes illegally, I must add. And Kennedy was the only president ever to surveillance or try to surveillance the Israeli nuke program. Ever since that, it seems like the United States has just been forking over money to them. And I add that because it's coming at a time that this government is slaughtering people in Palestine left and right, and despite all the Israeli propaganda, numbers that Israel's killing, the government, people in government's different, but the IDF has killed, has killed thousands of people, while Palestinians, the few bad apples in the bunch, have killed very few people in comparison. And I bring that up because I just want to hear your take on, if this has been brought to your attention, Israeli-Palestinian, like this new conflict that's almost been starting ever since the kidnapping of those 3 Israeli teenagers and then the revenge bombings. But let me put this in perspective also. These 3 Israeli teenagers were kidnapped by, I've heard actually ISIS before. That's what some people are saying. But it's 3 random Palestinians at worst. Okay, if 3 random Mexicans they don't know the actual number, but if random Mexican people kidnapped Americans on an American colony in Mexico, because remember this was an Israeli colony, they were kidnapped in Palestine, and then America after that, they found them dead in Mexico. These 3 Americans. If America came back and bombed Mexico City in revenge, the whole world would be in shock. Look. And that's what's going on in Palestine nowadays. What's your take on that?
Well, the whole Palestinian-Israeli thing is a mess. And, the Palestinians are wonderful people and they're deserving of their rights. And also, the other side is deserving of their human rights too. And I tend to back off, and I used to provide information on that whole mess, but everybody is so violent in their opinions, and nobody really wants to hear what's going on, that I tend to just back off, and I don't. There isn't any way for me to contribute to the situation in a positive way, because as soon as I say anything, it wouldn't matter what opinion or what viewpoint it was or what facts I brought, I just get attacked from every direction. And so I just okay, enough with this. People aren't interested in the facts. They're just so emotionally charged to their own opinion that it's not even worth trying to talk sense to people.
Well, it is a giant mess, and this has been going on for a long time now. But people. I mean, it is alarming how one-sided some people get. And they don't really, you see on the internet right now. If you have a lot of truther friends, just people on one side or another. I know I've made apparent that I'm sticking with the Palestinian people right now because what the IDF is doing right now is very wrong, I would say. But I could see why you want to stay away from that mess right now that's going on in Israel and Palestine. Even though Palestine has been made non-existent, and it's not. They want to be a state. They should be able to be a state. Anyways, but I'm going to change the topic. So back to you, and then I'm actually going to open up the phone line to this one caller. I can't tell if they actually want to talk or they just listen in. If you do want to talk, the caller, press 1 so that puts a little marker on it so I know. So I saw that you visited Japan. How many countries have you visited around the world? And I know you moved around a lot when you were a kid, too, because of, wasn't your dad in the Air Force or something like that?
No, he had a career going to third world countries to develop their agriculture. His goal was to help make the world self-sufficient in food. I've been in around 34 countries.
34.
Had the privilege to live in Asia and Africa and Europe.
Man, that's crazy. 34 different countries. I mean, I'm thinking I've been to 2. I know I'm young, but I've only been to here, United States, and then my mom's homeland, Colombia, and I've been there 3 times. But besides that, I haven't left those 2 countries. Like in your 34 countries, what was your best experience out of all the countries you traveled to? And
well, when you travel, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you're going to see a country that's doing things better than your own country, which is great because then you learn new ideas on how to improve your own country, or you see things that are worse and it makes you appreciate your own country better. One country that I really enjoyed a lot was the Netherlands because the people were healthy and friendly. I just enjoyed the attitude of the Dutch. They're very open people, and that endeared me to them. But I've enjoyed other countries too. Like I really appreciate the Japanese because I appreciate their commitment to excellence. And I used to marvel when I was in Japan. There were just things that, it almost unreal. For instance, like if you dropped your wallet in Tokyo, it would be returned to you. I saw hundreds and hundreds of bikes, and they weren't even locked up, and nobody was going to steal them. Or you could ride the bullet train, and people weren't going to vandalize the seats. They weren't going to write them up or take out their penknife and carve them up like here in the United States. So there were a lot of beautiful things about Japan and the Japanese people. Just like the bullet train that I was just mentioning, speeding along at I think it was like 236 miles per hour, which was a lot faster than the Amtrak I just took, which was at best going about 90 miles per hour, but most of the time wasn't even doing that. I don't know what else to say without getting long-winded, but those were 2 countries that I enjoyed.
Yeah, that's, with the high-speed rail, that would be a good thing, I think, here in the United States. It's, think about just how much efficient and many countries have actually adopted high-speed rail, and that's one of the things that'd be nice to see here, but, probably won't happen due to one of the major reasons I would say is probably because of, big oil, of course. It's just like this country, things will only happen unless things could happen, but, there's just going to be these big corporations that if it conflicts their interests are going to immediately lobby everybody in our government to go their way because, again, this is a corporate-owned government practically. Japan, it says something good of their culture. I don't know if it's high morals or what, it's like that wallet thing, I think it's a country where people are just well off. If people are struggling to live, and cannot pay their bills, and, and people are, and also there is a greed sometimes that isn't people. But if you're absent of that's one of the major factors is just the whole country, country's in poverty, and now, this country is now 50% in poverty. under a already low poverty line. But in Japan, I think that's not so much the case. That's probably explain why that happened. It also looks like some morals, I don't know, maybe just people like to keep their environment looking good, I guess, by, since they're not vandalizing the high-speed rail or whatever. That's kind of just weird to explain, but, it seems like that's definitely a sign of something good's happening. Now, it is sad to hear about what's going on now with the Fukushima disaster and radiation spilling out. And there's definitely needs to be something done about that, because the Pacific Ocean and many ecosystems are going to die off if we don't react soon. We've already had the world get to this point one time before, in 1986, when Chernobyl had a meltdown, and now 25 years later after that we have Fukushima. Now we've been 3 years unresponsive, the whole world, and they're not recognizing how dangerous this is to the whole world, how this will just keep spilling radiation until the whole world's radiation levels are just too high. And, what's your take on that Fukushima disaster?
Well, it's just like you said, the world is being really passive in the response to this huge disaster. And so I have to ask myself, who are the string pullers in the world, and what do they gain by this? And I believe one of the things that they gain by it is they turn us against atomic nuclear power. Nuclear power, as it's being carried out now, is extremely dangerous. It's really not worth the price that humanity's paying for it. And so I think that they want us to support the abolishment of nuclear power. You see this ancient goal of the Illuminati to take us back to a limited population where we're very restricted in what the technology that we have, and we're very controlled. And so I think that this is part of the agenda. I don't think it's happening accidentally. I think it's part of the agenda to have these nuclear disasters, and then to allow them to just to get out of hand. I think it's being intentionally. They were intentionally created, and the problems are being allowed to go unaddressed. So that's my take on it.
Well, yeah, now that they have that, they just let the disaster become big, and yes, people are going to be now against nuclear power, definitely. I think that all reality, solar power has got to be the best option if you're going to ask me about non-renewable resources. I mean, it's the sun, it's limitless energy. Nothing can really go wrong. It's separate from using oil, so we can keep, feeding these giant oil companies, and so they can keep operating over there in the Middle East. As long as we keep using oil for everything, and also with oil, of course, there's the environment, but it's just oil, nuclear energy, in my opinion, both are not the smartest option. The smartest option would be solar, and I think the world's biggest solar producer, that's most solar energy, is actually Germany. So that whole myth about it has to be sunny for solar power, I think some people almost think that is not true, because Germany's not a very sunny country. They actually have one of the lower amounts of sunshine if you look per year. Compared to here, we have these big areas of the country where we could power the whole country just by putting some solar panels out west, where they have 90% of the year the sun is out. And you don't even need that much. They say that if we put a big in the size of a country of Algeria, if we covered it with solar panels, the whole world's energy needs to be met. But there's one thing that, of course, is the Tesla Tower, but it's a special name, the Warden Cliff Tower, I believe is the name of it, that he invented. and now actually Russian physicists are actually trying to rebuild it, and it's supposedly supposed to give wireless energy. It's practically this free energy device, which almost breaks the laws of physics to an extent. Many physicists thought that, energy cannot be created. It's almost like one of the laws of science, but I don't think it actually works like that. But it can transmit wireless energy. And then apparently J.P. Morgan and other people just made sure that invention was destroyed back when it was originally created 100 years ago by Nikola Tesla. Do you think that's actually a viable thing? Do you think that could be maybe energy of the future, if it's not shut down?
You're asking about solar power?
I was actually talking about the Tesla, the Wardenclyffe Tower.
Oh, the Tesla technology? Yeah, the Tesla technology could definitely free us up from the dependence we have on the elites corporations. Yeah, and again, it's like you're saying, they've built independence intentionally so that we don't have that freedom.
Yeah, I mean, they made us dependent on these, on their oil companies' energy. These people that probably attend the Bilderberg Committee. I mean, they say there's 125 participants so think about the 125, biggest names or whatever, CEOs and a few world leaders, squeeze them in there, and if it's an accurate number, there might be more or less. And there's probably some people from Exxon, Mobil, and all the other big oil companies there, they're pretty much working right there at the Bilderberg Committee where, all their plans are correctly set up practically. I mean, it's about their, pretty much the conference of the New World Order that they do every year in different places. But this year was in Copenhagen. But going back to that, yeah, of course, you'd be, if we became independent of oil and then finally used, something like, I was thinking the Tesla towers are solar energy. Yeah, definitely. That definitely would be good. But, I fear that the Tesla tower is somehow going to be shut down. They shut down his work when they originally made the Tesla tower I think it was over 100 years ago. It was like, I think it was around 1900, around the turn of the century, Tesla made the Tesla tower. Another question I'm going to ask is that you wrote your most famous book in 95, right? You wrote Bloodlines of the Illuminati. It was published in that year, right?
Yes. Bloodlines of the Illuminati was published first in 1995. You're correct.
Yes. You wrote that book in 95, and there was a lot of info that that people thought to be absolutely ridiculous in, and I was just wondering, like, where did most of your research come from, and how did you do all this research? Because you actually researched a lot of your information before the internet was actually a thing. What was it, that you researched books? I just want to know.
Well, definitely my research was not from the internet. I began researching a long time ago, and the internet's become a vehicle where people can put in a search word, but that was not the way I did it. Well, I actually used every source imaginable for putting together that book. I interviewed a lot of people that had been in the Illuminati, some that were still in it, some that were trying to get out of it. I actually met people that were still Illuminati, that you might use the adjective still dangerous. I looked at a lot of books, a lot of magazine articles. I looked at firsthand documents. I traveled and visited sites. I tried to get information from every source possible, and I tried to get down to the nitty-gritty and get past all of the disinformation or people that, like if you go to a newspaper article, a lot of people stop there and they just go, well, it was written in the newspaper, it must be true. Well, that doesn't make it true. It just means that some reporter or his boss wrote it. Whether it has any relationship to reality or not, who knows? So I would try to get beyond the surface and get to the facts. And there's a lot of anomalies in history, and I've been studying history for many decades. And so by working back and forth, if you see an anomaly in history, then you work back and forth to try to explain it. And so that gives you a little bit of an idea of my sources. It was just thousands of different sources. And when you go to my Be Wise as Serpents book, like in the second chapter of my Be Wise as Serpents book, I was trying to footnote everything of where I got it. There's like 140 footnotes there. So you begin to get an idea of the enormous amount of sources that I've used.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying the internet. I know you didn't use that as your sources, but it's just that nowadays that seems to be a lot of people where they get their info now, and no, the internet can be useful if if you're actually wise using it. But of course, if you believe everything there as fact, you're gonna have a lot of misinfo. You have to take everything with a grain of salt there. It's way better than the attitude, if you go on the, a lot of people think, oh, if it comes from the TV, it must be true, which we all know that's it's completely bogus, considering that, there's 6 CEOs or whatever that control like 15,000 mainstream media sources, and then they'll say, but it's on the internet, it's fake. So, that's not a good attitude, but the best attitude is, just go around, look at many different sources, like what you were talking about, with writing that book, the 13 Bloodlines of Illuminati, and the other book. Also, must ask, because I don't know this myself, is when did you write your first book?
Oh, well, the first book that I ever wrote was back in 1978. I wrote a 7-book series on Christian doctrine. But my attitude was that, it comes from the Word of God. It says, buy truth and sell it not. And because God's truth is something that He had freely given me, I did not sell any of my 7 books. I financed the printing of them, and I handed them out free. And, of course, you don't make any money when you give out books like that. But that's what I did way back in the 1970s, and nobody knows about that because I did it really quietly. But I was exposing things clear back in the 70s.
Yeah, so you've been in this now. This is 30-plus years now. Yeah, I was saying, like you're a researcher before, the internet and this modern, I think there is awakening going on. A lot of the people are starting to wake up now. Is it too late? Hopefully not. But, there's been researchers that have been, writing books since, 200 years ago on the New World Order. Since these plans have been around for thousands of years, what did you wake up when around the time that you left the military? Because I know that you actually started off. You went to West Point, actually, right?
Right. Well, it was a step-by-step process, and learning is always a step-by-step process. So it's like asking someone, when did you learn math? Or when did you become a Christian? You start learning math in kindergarten or first grade, but you step by step through the years you learn more. Clear back as a teenager, and I was precocious. I read Mein Kampf when I was 11 years old. I read books like 1984 and Brave New World when I was an early teenager. Animal Farm in 1984 are about an elite having total power, And in Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, he discusses a lot of the issues of the day. So I was already studying these things clear back then. I became aware of the Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, the banksters, the Federal Reserve in the 1970s, and then also Freemasonry back then, and then it's a process where you just keep growing and understanding. And then as a Christian, if you have a really strong biblical viewpoint, what the Bible says. It says, love not the world, and it's always talking about how the whole world system is controlled. It talks of, people laugh and they call people like myself conspiracy theorists, but the thing of it is if you go to the Bible, you find out that the Bible is as just as much a conspiracy advocate as any of us. Go clear back to Psalms, and it says all the kings, it doesn't say a few, it says all the kings band together, conspire against God, And it talks in the Bible about how the wealthy control the poor, and how the merchants of this world, have set up a system. And it goes on and on. So if you look at the scriptures and take them at face value, which a lot of people don't, but if you take the framework, the biblical worldview, you see that it tells us that there's this satanic power that controls the world, and Satan's a control freak. So this control that's over the world is very powerful and very controlling. It's not a loose organization. And so I've been a Christian for many decades, and I've really sincerely believed the Scripture. So from that aspect of things, even before I knew the details, I knew the broad structure of things. It's just been exciting to see how research and everything has filled in the details to what the Bible framework is. I believe that God is truth, so wherever there's truth, that's where God is. So I try to follow truth, but it's been interesting that in doing all this research, it's come back and confirmed the Scriptures.
Yeah, the weird thing is, though, about, I don't know, maybe it's like you're saying, that people are not taking the stuff in the Bible at face value. People, considering that still 75% of this country is Christian, and a big part of the world's Christian, I think it's, a couple billion people, but definitely not a couple billion people are awake, and then I guess maybe they just skip over some of these parts about, the one world government, the one world currency, one world, one world police, that everything that leads to that everything that is in that new world order, and and this, all these many leaders that have conspired to make this new world order and fighting the very essence of humanity, which, I believe that humanity, is God. Is God created humanity, and actually having a, actually being humane, is one of the good things, to actually follow God. You have to be a humane person. These people have no, they can't even, they have no grasp on humanity. They've just lost all sense of humanity. These people are elite, and they've been overtaken by greed and evil, pretty much. These people at the top, these people at the very top of the pyramid, which, I start to even question, do you think these people in the 13 families, do you think this is the very top? I've heard people say that they're not even at the top, and that the people at the top we don't even really know. I've heard people go back to the Medici bankers and other people.
There's a lot of speculation and a lot of theories out there. Everybody's got their own opinion. I will stand by my research. I have done my research. I'll just stand by what I've done. And, anybody can come up with crazy theories and throw in a few facts to substantiate it, and get a following. And I'm not going to change people's minds. And there's plenty of people out there that say that my information's wrong. But I tell you what, to give you an example, people that are going into therapists with trauma-based mind control, these are people that were got trauma-based mind control by the Illuminati, and their therapists, and quite often I've gotten therapists contact me and say, thanks, Fritz, for your information, because it validated what these people had gone through, and you're the only one out there that's providing this kind of information. So, my information's repeatedly validated itself. Just like when I was in prison, there was a man, he had been the go-between between the Lee Illuminati family and the Mafia. Well, I'm the only one that's put out information on the Lee Illuminati family. I'm the only one that showed the connections between the Mafias, the different organized crimes in the Illuminati, how they intersect genealogically and so forth. So it's just interesting, and he hadn't read my material. We just got discussing one day about things, and he shared how he had been involved as the go-between between the Lees and the Mafia in Hawaii. So, I've seen my material validated repeatedly, and all these people can come up with all their weird theories, and they can get their followers, but I stand by what I've done. And very few people have read as much history or examined things or has been as widely traveled and examined things. It's real easy to latch on to a theory if you have a very limited view of things. Some of these people that are coming up with alternative ideas, they're really limited in their understanding of history. So what they come up with makes it sound really good, but if you know the details of history, you just shake your head and go, this person really doesn't have a clue,
Well, yeah. Again, I didn't know that part about the therapist, thanking you for the information. And, that's, in Hollywood and many of their, especially in Hollywood, I've heard of this, this trauma that they inflict on the actors via, the handlers, these top producers and stuff like that, on the actors, and they have, they actually don't have almost much free will of what they do. And, also, I wanted to go back to, how I woke up, I started looking into history just like you. Like when I was younger, like 12 years old, only I already had started looking into history and politics, and later I started learning about the Federal Reserve, and that's the first thing I ever learned altogether was 9/11 and how that was an inside job. When I was 11 years old, I think that's when I learned about that. And I didn't believe it at first when I heard the theory, of course. I was like, that can't be true. That's just something that Jesse Ventura made up, and that's because I watched that TV show as a kid, and then I looked it up and did the research. I was like, oh, okay, maybe it was true that was an inside job. And then that led to, one thing led to another thing, and I read a couple books also, so I read Animal Farm, which Animal Farm is based on, is the Orwell book that's based on Stalinist type control. Actually Orwell's background, because Stalin was against Orwell when he was fighting the fascist Franco dictatorship. Stalin was also against him. So now you had Hitler and Stalin against Orwell when he was working with the Spanish Second Republic, I believe was the name of the army that he was in. So Orwell also wrote 1984. He actually wrote 1984 when he was in a sanitarium, I believe, when he was actually dying. That he finished 1984 in his last breath. That's what I think that he had this alarming thing, this Orwellian, world he was talking about, and it was a warning, to us. And I think 1984 might have been, it's an early prediction a little bit, but it's really just, 50 years maybe down later, and I don't even know if it's 50 years later than that. That'd be 2034, and the way it's, things are slipping rapidly. But, he might have been just a little early. You got the year wrong, but he was definitely right on his prediction, and that's why he wrote that as he was dying. He had to get that warning out. That's, the people, and George Orwell is a very, he's a very known author, but yet I don't think people they sometimes when they just read a book, I guess they think that's fictional, that's purely fictional, but it's actually, it's even though it is a fictional book, it's almost non-fictional, it's a prediction, and actually Animal Farm, even though it was about a bunch of talking animals and stuff like that, was very non-fictional. I mean, it was going back to what happened in Russia, wasn't there, I remember in the book, there was that one, there was practically who resembled Trotsky gets kicked out, and then he uses Trotsky as an excuse to kill whoever he needs to, saying that he was working with Trotsky because supposedly Trotsky was working with the CIA, which actually happened in real life, of course. There was, the different things, and they had a bunch of different names. I forgot about it already, the names. I can't believe it, because I actually liked that book, but I read it, it seemed like quite some time back. But, yeah. Again, I think that's almost what might be part of the problem, with some books, is that people take these books sometimes as too fictional. Even though it is fictional, they're not looking at the connections to nonfiction, and that's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to see your take. Do you think that's part of a problem? It's just that I think people are not able to make connections to reality, and sometimes a fictional book. Even though your books are completely, you state it's nonfiction, but there's the other authors like George Orwell, that had a somewhat fictional book, but had connections to reality, and really in a way was nonfiction.
Animal Farm is definitely like a parable, so you've got a heads up that you're to apply it, like a parable that Christ said or something, but then there's other books that are written as fiction where the author is hoping that the reader will make the jump. I disagree with doing that, because the way the mind works is when you read fiction, the body, the mind, which is part of the body, the mind stores that fictional information in one part of the brain which is separate from truth, you know. So for me, I consider it important that the reader know this is true, this is the facts, this is why, this is the documentation behind it, so that the reader will put this information into the part of his brain that says this is truth. So I have a different approach than other authors, you know, but to each his own. Some people feel like if you give people the truth, it's so alarming that they shut down and they won't read it, and that they'll read something that's fiction before they'll read something the truth. But to me, that's just part of the problem. That's people wanting to stay in fiction and unreality. I want people to start loving reality because that's where it's at. You know, let's love the truth. You know, the Word of God says that it's the love of truth that's going to save us, not truth. I can hand you a book that's full of truth. I can hand you a Bible that's full of truth, but it's not going to do anything for you unless you love the truth. So that's where I'm coming from is I want to instill in people a love of the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what. Yeah, I get that tank. You know, that they want to overload somebody with the truth at first or whatever, and then you know they don't read it. You know, people should want you know to go after the truth and you know actually you know want to seek the truth, but you know that unfortunately that we don't live in a perfect world. You know, I guess finding the perfect balance would probably be, you know, the right thing, just kind of mixing it, you know, between truth and something, you know, almost like a fictional. But you know, a lot of people don't want to take the jump. But I seem to be, you know, when I say read a book or whatever, I seem to want to at least look at, you know, if there's any connections possibly to reality that the author is trying to instill. You know, in fact, if I don't, I think the book is pretty boring. You know, if I can't find, you know, whatever that message is, you know, and then I kind of just feel like it was a waste of my time. You know, it doesn't really entertain me as much as finding the message in the book. You know, no, I see it's already looks like it is about 5 minutes after 9-ish here on the East Coast, like 6 over there. Now, I'm gonna keep talking while I try to get my studio music work, which hasn't been working tonight. But if I can, then we're going to go to a break, and then let's see.
You get up and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scam and jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis the 13th, Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head, my real South niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day clearing America overseas, pension for the workers, nigga please, embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement, I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut, foreclosure that close out the tenement, I twist words like a speech impediment, I hope you got good credit, bitch, if not, better get a new job with benefits, while I play golf with niggas and get cheddar with, new money buys brand new carrots, my old money bunch of great grandparents, you got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya, I own every gold mine in South Africa, thanks baby, you made me $1 billion, plus I own a building, but each one of my children's children, that's the shit, snort coke in the wet Miss USA sucking my dick, yeah what, fuck the law, cause real jailers for suckers, I go to country clubs, prison, you dumb motherfuckers, I am the 1%, fucking bitches, yeah, you know my CEO corporate steeds, please, overthrow governments, job and a house and a bank account. When I'm out, I doubt that's something you could say. And if not, then a fake death like Kenneth Lay. Make money every day, the world burns on its axis. While y'all struggling to pay taxes, I'm getting my money the fastest. Memos and faxes, shredded up documents, slush funds through the corrupt continent. But they don't want me indicted, cause they don't want my dirty laundry aired when I fight it. So get my lawyers excited, cause what good is the law if you can't rewrite it? I got CIA traders, dictators, so fuck y'all whistleblowers and haters. Shit. I'll invest money from Al-Qaeda in the bank, 9/11 widows go too late to capitalism. So I pray to fuck the state of the world. Money talks, so what the fuck I need to say to your girl? I don't pay him to fuck, I pay him to leave. You know my CEO corporate Steve Greed. I treat countries like the IMF, down on your knees. Real gangsters run the world, fuck what you believe. I cut down the forest while y'all niggas burning some trees. I get your family murdered for a couple of G's. Cause your working class money ain't fucking with me. You think rappers are rich cause the songs you heard? My labels make some money and have it rap the fucking words. Y'all in the ocean coasting with the sails out. Hey America, thanks for the bailouts. I made off at Tobacco and Ambrosiano. Got away scot-free like El Vaticano. Activists get mad at me cause I'm a tax-free charity. 80% to the staff and company and 20% to the homeless and hungry. The country gotta pay the Fed Reserve. Kick back to the banksters, haven't you learned? You protest cops and patrols on the street, but I bought City Hall so I own the police. Email, Facebook, and the shit you tweet on a phone company, so I heard you speaking. My suggestion is no correction, no election, sex with no affection, no invention to benefit the world. A man will exist till I got the money in my hand. World Bank, interest rate, damn rates on the spot. But I'm a gangster, you gon' take my money like it or not, nigga. I got your country in my pocket, motherfucker. You know my CEO Masonic Steve Cheese. Only little people pay all these taxes and fees. Since you were born, we control what you watch and you read. And pretty soon we're gonna own the fucking air that you breathe. I take what I want, fucker, I don't have to say please. I convince you that it's good for you. Take it and leave. You think presidents are the face of a nation? I put them all where they are. End of this conversation.
And we are back. That was Immortal Technique, Rich Man's World. This is Stable Radio. This is Revolution Radio. Right now, it is about 9:10 here on the East Coast, 6:10 Pacific time, where we have our host, Fritz Springmeier. And I do apologize about that song. I didn't realize I was putting that song was that one. I picked one from the studio because I just wanted to go to break. Because I have to say I was a little winded from that hour of radio. Anyways, Emma, we don't have any other callers besides this one that has just been sitting here in the studio and hasn't put his hand up. So I'm figuring that that person does not want to ask any questions or anything. Fritz, one question I must ask, because you were on his program one time, InfoWars, and do you think that Alex Jones is the real deal? Because there's a lot, it's an overwhelming amount of the truther community does not think that way.
Okay. My answer goes back to my approach to life in general, and that is, for quite a few years, I've had the personal policy, if you can't say something good about someone, don't say it. And also, I've taken the scriptural viewpoint that Christ took, that he gave a parable where he said, allow the wheat and the tares to grow up, because if you try to tear out the tares, you're going to get some of the wheat. And so when it comes to attacking other people out there that are exposing the New World Order, I just tell people to make up their own mind and look at the facts for themselves. I don't want to get into, to use the vernacular, a pissing contest with some of these other people. I know that there's plenty of them out there that are jealous of me, that are saying all kinds of horrendous lies, but I'm not going to get in there and start slinging mud back. And so I just take a hands-off approach to all these other people. I know that when I first started publicly exposing the New World Order and the Illuminati back in 1990, it seemed like nobody out there, with a few exceptions, but almost across the board, most of the people out there were fake. They were controlled opposition, and I didn't have any friends. And it's been that way for years. I haven't had, people that I thought would be there by my side fighting the New World Order were busy stabbing me in the back. So, but from my vantage point, I wasn't going to stab them back, because if we get into infighting, then we'll destroy ourselves. It'll be like the French Revolution where everybody kills each other. And so I just won't go there. I'll let people make up their own minds about Alex Jones. All I say is don't throw someone away just on hearsay and rumor, because you could go out there and hear every evil spoken about me, and 99% of it's just pure baloney. So if you were in Alex Jones' shoes, you would want to be given a fair hearing, a fair trial. And so, just because somebody says something negative about them doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So give the guy a fair shot, and if you come to a conclusion about him, here's the thing about Alex Jones that bothers me. Nobody is forced to listen to him. All these people that go, oh, Alex Jones is fake, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, nobody's saying you have to listen to him. I would say, since I got out of prison, about 30% of the people that I've met came into the Awake, or you can call it the Awake or the Truth community. They've come into our community because of Alex Jones. So I say this: if Alex Jones is controlled opposition, he's doing a lot better job than the people that aren't controlled opposition, because he's brought in about 30% of the people that are awake. That's my comments along that lines.
Yeah, I have to say that Alex Jones did bring a lot of people to being awake, and got them on the right path, at least. So if he's a controlled opposition, he's doing a crappy job at it, But Alex. I know he personally defended you, and even like his statements about you, when he called you a political prisoner. That got a lot of flack. A lot of people, again, they were going back to the baloney about you, that the mainstream media was putting out there. But, anybody that's, people are exposing this criminal cartel that is this government, that is the New World Order, that's a part of this, it's practically, it's the best way to, call it. It's just a big criminal cartel, and they support a lot of drug cartels and, be it the government, be it U.S. government, highly involved with the drug trade and everything. I don't like to rush to call people controlled opposition, I have to say I'm skeptical about Alex Jones, but I'm not going to come to a full conclusion publicly, one way or another. And even though Alex Jones wasn't even the person that brought me to the truth movement, I would say if anybody, it was Jesse Ventura, which, there's a lot of doubt about him too. But I like what you said about there. If we start infighting again, then there is a lot of infighting in the truth movement. It's not like not started yet. It's already started. That's the problem. We see this constant infighting all the time between different factions in the truth movement. And it's like what happened in the French Revolution. Everybody will just start killing each other left and right, which that ended up in like many different factions. That's why it's like one of the most complicated historical events ever. But the infighting in the truth movement is real, and it's unfortunate it has to happen. And I think it is their. It's very much their tactics. I mean, it's very much the elites divide and conquer. I mean, it goes right back to that. Again, it's Machiavellian type stuff. If you want to understand the attitudes of these high-level elites, read Machiavelli, because they pretty much just use his playbook, and whatever it takes for them to win, they will do. Whatever they deem is necessary, the false flag, the assassinations, dividing and conquering the media, to the money that they need to bribe people out, and that kind of stuff. Machiavelli is their attitude, 1984 is their plan, and Animal Farm is more of their plans, I guess, is what you could say about those. Just read the Machiavelli in 1984. Anybody's just like, this is your first show, in the truth movement, which I expect. Every show there might be one or two. Who knows, that just don't even know anything about the truth movement, but are just searching Blog Talk Radio today. And yeah, that's what I'll tell them if they're just waking up. Those are two books to read, definitely, if you want to understand their attitudes and their plan. Like also, since you are, you're an author about the New World Order. Any books. What was your first book you read about the New World Order that you can think of? Was there any author anti-New World Order author that was your inspiration?
Well, I guess the honest answer would be to the Bible. And when I gave my life to Christ and I read the Word of God, and it warned about how the world was controlled, then that gave me a framework to start seeing things. It gave me the green light to accept the fact that what we were being told on the news wasn't the full truth. So I guess the first book would be the Word of God. Since then, there's just been so many books that I've read. I don't know which was the first one, but I can talk about some that are important. Early on, I read a book by John Robeson. It's Proofs of a Conspiracy, and this man was one of the most intellectually respected men in his day. He was alive back in the American Revolution time period, and he was a high-ranking Freemason that saw the Illuminati come in and illuminize the Masonic lodges. And so his book is excellent, Proofs of a Conspiracy. And then so another book that I read early on that was really good was Eustace Mullen's book, The World Order. And he had a subtitle, The Study in Hegemony of Parasitism. And that's a good way of looking at this. We've had an elite throughout all of human history that's been like a parasite. And unfortunately for them and us both, they think that it's time now to kill the host. And I don't know what's going to happen if they kill most of us. To me, it seems like if you're a parasite and you've been living off of the host, to kill the host is going to damage you as much as anything. I look I think a lot of times the people that are running the show fail to realize all of the little things that the middle class and the lower class do. You know, you look at technology and you think, oh, this is really great. Let's take a tank, for instance. You know, if you watch Hollywood movies, you see a tank go into battle and it does all of this. You don't realize that at the end of the day, that tank crew has to tighten thousands of bolts on that tank. They have to service that tank. They have to, they have to hand carry the ammo and store it inside the tank. They have to clean the tank out. They're busy all night long getting that tank ready for the next day of battle. So all of these technological wonders that we see around, like airplanes and helicopters and blah, 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 they don't just miraculously function. There are people that are sitting there making them and making them work. And I think sometimes the people that are running the show don't really comprehend how many little things are done day to day by the little people. So if they wipe us out, they may see that they wiped out a large share of their own infrastructure. There's not going to be the maid to take care of things. So going back to books, one of the early books that I read, which was pretty good. Again, you have to put all of these things together. It's not like you read one book and you've got the whole picture. But there was a book that came out in 1964, and it was called The Untold History, and it was by a man named Plume. It was giving the history of the British East India Company, and I got interrupted there because we still have a lot of, I don't know if they're fireworks or people are firing guns. Sometimes it sounds more like guns, but it may just be leftover fireworks that people didn't get shot off in the 4th of July time period. Anyway, that's one just went off. Anyway, back to my focus here. You have a long history of the elite, and you have antecedents to things. And so to really understand where we are today, you have to see where we were and what corporations. And the British East India Company as a corporation has played a major role in the development of the United States. And in fact, our flag, the 13 stripes, the red and white stripes and the 13 stars, that flag was actually the British East India Company flag. And you might ask, well, why did America adopt the flag of its enemy? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it's because this country actually has been run by the corporations from behind the scenes, and that's been covered up. And it blew my mind when I realized that this whole Betsy Ross, all this mythology about our flag, and then when you discover, whoa, the British East India Company, we adopted their flag, So that's one of those anomalies of history, and that's why that book, The Untold History, by Plume, was important. My goodness, some of the other books. Offhand, going back to Eustace Mullins, and he wrote another book too, The Curse of Canaan, which is on genealogies, and he also wrote one on the Federal Reserve. Those understanding the Federal Reserve is important. I mean, why do we need this central bank? Why does America need to have this private organization, the Federal Reserve, running things? These are questions people need to ask themselves. And then his other book, The Curse of Canaan, it was bringing out an important aspect of the elite, and that is they have genealogies. That's why the Bloodlines of the Illuminati book was so important. Was when I started working with people that had been in the Illuminati, there were two concepts that were important to them. One was the bloodlines, and the other one was the mind control. These elite bloodlines go way back, and the whole thing of it is there's no point in history where the powerful families just said, oh, you know what, we're tired of running the show. We're going to give it to these serfs. We're going to step back and let the serf, the scum of the earth, run this planet. No, it hasn't happened that way. And when the history books get written, they always write up their own people and make heroes out of the elite, and they ignore the role that the common people have played in history. That's one aspect of it. But another aspect of it is they hide the connections between them. They don't emphasize the fact that there's a continuity in these bloodlines. So that's why it was so important when I wrote The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I gave this genealogy in the front, which is also duplicated in the back in a larger size. But the chart shows how 25 American presidents are related. And then I gave a lot of other genealogy charts showing how the Illuminati relate to our presidents, I showed how 11 presidents, at least 11 presidents, come from the Merovingians, and I show how some of our presidents tie into the Rothschilds, so that people realize the power and the continuity of these bloodlines. Let's see. Maybe I'll stop there and let you ask another question.
Yeah. I want to go back to that one thing. It's like, what's that depopulation thing? It's like, it's definitely in their plans. I mean, they publicly stated it. I mean, they believe that once they kill off the host, because they believe they're going to bring us down to 500 million people. That's what, I believe it was Rockefeller that said that. One of the 13 families. One of the Rockefellers said he wanted to bring us back to a neo-feudal society. Pretty much, you're talking about serfs. And, they're going to make it again. They want to bring it back to that point. Pretty much serfdom is slavery, and serfdom was a prevalent thing all throughout the world where, you had the contract. The serfs could not leave their 20-mile area land, usually, without the Lord's permission. They usually didn't grant it. And the vassals were supposedly protecting the serfs in exchange for the serfs giving all their fruits of their labor to the lords. And, it was really a crappy contract, to say the least. I'm going to put a number out for the show while I get the chance. I see we're in the last 27 minutes. It says on the clock, 347-205-9576. That is 347-205-9576. I just have to say, like, the amount of, there's a couple families that are always mentioned. There's like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds are always mentioned with these elites. Always those two are usually mentioned. Of course, the Kennedys, when it relates to JFK, who rebelled, from the JFK elite family. But what about, it's like some of these families, I don't even know how you got the information on them. It's kind of, like the Lee family. I've heard of the Lees before, or the Astors, or the Bundy family. I think is another one that was just like, when I looked, I'm like, I haven't even heard of these families, mentioned on anywhere. I just wonder. It's like I know that you interviewed a lot of people and looked at so many different sources, but it's like, yeah, that's where I give the unique edge to your book, is that you were able to get, these elite families that are usually not talked about, but have a significance, a big-time significance in the whole New World Order structure. I mean, they make up the top of the pyramid. Is it those people that, and also, I mean, how did you even come in contact is what I want to know, with these people that were supposedly in the Illuminati or connected to the Illuminati New World Order,
Well, one of my big breakthroughs was, I guess you could say, if you believe in God, it was divine coincidence, but I came in contact with 4 women that had been teamed together in the Illuminati that were trying to escape, and formed a support system for each other. And in meeting with them, in the first meeting that I had with them, I had a computer printout of powerful families, because I knew that there were 13 top families. That was the case back then. Now it's 7 families. They've trimmed it down, but I knew that there were 13 families. So I had this printout listing names like Rockefeller, Rothschild, blah, blah. And I said, would you please circle the top families? And so, they circled the top names, but they had to write in, like I didn't have Van Dyne written there. And Van Dyne turns out to be one of the most secret bloodlines, but extremely powerful. And so anyway, the information that they gave me is born. It has validated itself, and like they mentioned the Bundy family, and before that time, conspiracy theorists hadn't mentioned the Bundy family, but you start looking at someone like McGeorge Bundy, who was a member of the Order of the Skull and Bones, and you start realizing that this guy, he got promoted and put into different positions, and there's no way that he could do his phenomenal leap from one important position to another unless he was an insider, And where do people get the clout to be put in these positions? Because it's not like they have the credentials or experience. Well, it goes back to something that Eustace Mullen said, and he said these people get their positions of power because of the bloodlines that they belong to, and that's so true. Okay, another question. That's probably a good place to finish with that.
Yeah. With all these people whose, ultimate goal is a new world order, how soon do you expect, what everything that's, involved with the new world order, the depopulation of the planet, all the extreme things, the World War, whatever. When do you expect, really best way to say it, when do you expect the poop to hit the fan?
Well, my experience over the years is that history is not written in stone, not even their plans. I mean, they've altered their own plans. And so, if I give any kind of a forward-looking agenda or timetable, I want the listener to realize that I'm not saying this as something cast in stone. Even things that the prophets of God would say, you would see, like Jonah going to Nineveh, but Nineveh repented, so it wasn't destroyed. I mean, you have flexibility there. So, but I think, all things said, and looking at the way things are going, I think that sometime between August and November, we're going to see the economic crash of the United States precipitated. So right now we're only a couple, 2-3 months away from this slide. And then when the American economy starts sliding, we're going to see the American dollar dethroned as the world's reserve currency. I'm kind of expecting maybe that it will be replaced by several currencies. The euro and the red Chinese have a secret currency, the red plum, that they have secretly negotiated with other Southeast Asian countries. I think we'll see several regional currencies take over and replace. I don't think there'll be a single currency that will replace the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. What you're going to see then is the United States is going to have to start taking the responsibility for just printing a lot of funny money up. Right now we're printing up trillions of dollars of Federal Reserve notes, and the whole world is being taxed for us just printing this funny money up in extreme amounts. And so you're going to start seeing inflation. It's not going to be hyperinflation like Germany during the Weimar Republic, but it's going to be significant compared to what we've seen before. And so, over a year's time, you might see some prices double and things like that. Well, where people are just marginal and they're just barely scraping by, that's going to significantly hurt people. I mean, people are going to be hurting in the next few years. And then as people start hurting economically, and things start unraveling in this country, and then you're going to see more chaos. And when you see more chaos, then you're going to see a reaction to that chaos. The order, and then when you start seeing that, you're going to see the rest of the world come in to help us. And so United States as we know it, within 10 or 15 years, I wouldn't be surprised if the United States as we know it in 15 years no longer exists. And you're going to have these super plagues come along, because what they do is they'll have, your chaos, and then you'll have a war, and then you'll have follow that with the super plague. So these things are going to like boom, 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 and there's enough plagues out there that can be unleashed on humanity that just really make things miserable. So the people that don't have a good immune system, they'll fall by the wayside, and you'll get natural population reduction, which, from the elite's vantage point, they're like thinking we're doing the world a favor because we're taking out the weak and leaving the strong. I know that in their thinking they're thinking that they're doing us a favor, and there's a lot of people around the world that believe in overpopulation and probably would agree with them that it's going to help the planet to get rid of a lot of people. That's not my viewpoint. I'm just reporting the way a lot of people, besides the elite, view things. And then out of all of this enormous chaos and suffering and collapse of the system, which will be global, because when the United States goes down, we're going to pull the rest of the world along with us. Somewhere along here, I don't know if it'll be like 10 years from now or 15 years, but I anticipate that the aliens will show up and they'll say, you know what, we created you, and we've been watching you, and we need to help you because you're about to self-destruct, and we'll come along and help you out. And so at that point in time, things will really change, and the globe will place themselves under the leadership of these aliens, and truly the world as we know it will be gone. So that's the scenario as things are planned.
Well, you said they've changed their plans before, and I don't know about that pretty dark prediction, but, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which I found kind of weird, is that you said that they trimmed their families by 6 families. Like, who do they cut off? Like, and why do you think they did that?
Well, they made themselves meaner and leaner, so to speak. It's like when I worked for a corporation, they sent through efficiency experts, and you see that happening in the corporate world too, that they make one person do the job of 2 people, and they got rid of the families that weren't really hardcore and weren't really on track with their agenda. One of the families that got booted out was the Bush family, and they eliminated the whole skull and bones fraternal order, just making things tighter, more controlled, meaner and leaner. So there was quite a bit of rubber band effect before, where orders that were given from on high weren't exactly carried out in a crisp, efficient manner. And so things have been tightened up, and the corruption's been gotten rid of. In any organization that's controlled from the top, if you don't do a cleansing every so often, why you start getting people in the middle of things that start, because they're corrupt and greedy, they start doing things for themselves, and then you have a real rubber band effect of things being carried out, because you never know what that corrupt individual is going to do. So right now we've got 30 or 40. I would have to go back and look at my notes to see the total number. It may be up to 40 now of these banksters that have been eliminated by the Illuminati as they're tightening up control on things.
I know what exactly you're talking about. With start killing off some bankers. I mean, it was kind of one of those mysteries that no one could really explain, how they were just all of a sudden all jumping to their deaths. All of a sudden, all of them decided to kill themselves, apparently, which it was completely bogus. It's like one of those mainstream media stories that you just like look at, like, really, all these people are just decided to kill themselves out of nowhere. It was like 20. It's like I'm starting to think this is not coincidence. I don't know why. People, but not enough people were doing that. Too many people were like, I don't know, something must have happened. Man, stocks were just going bad. I don't know. But that doesn't have to do with my Sports Center watching. Let me just go flip back to channel 27. Too many people were just doing that while that was going on. So I don't think enough people. But to me, I was just like, but I just couldn't come up with an answer. I was just like, well, really, this is odd. I know something was going on weird. I thought they were maybe the impending economic crisis they were talking about, which, you were talking about the euro and that secret currency. I think this, I don't think the euro is going to be involved. And here's why. The euro is like at the same stage the United States dollar is, maybe even later on in its collapse. The euro is just all about done. It's a deck of cards that's about to fall, just like the Federal Reserve dollar. Probably for the same reasons, the Rothschild influence, making it no longer money, this is right out of the Wall Dictionary. Now it's currency. It's a fiat. It's fake. It's a fiat currency at this point. Here's what I think. You said about the red plum, which you said it's a secret currency that China's been working on, and I heard about the Chinese yuan. Of course, the real, the money that they actually use out in the open. But the red plum. I mean, this is interesting. I mean, just elaborate more on that.
Okay. Yeah, I got it from somebody who became a friend of mine who was the economic advisor to these top Illuminati kingpins, and he told me to keep it secret, that they were very sensitive about it, but obviously I didn't. But China has been stockpiling resources, gold, coal, and other things to back this currency up with. And so, in contrast with our funny money that we play with, their currency is going to have backing, and it's going to be a lot more legitimate. And so, people are going to want to use it because it's not going to be inflatable and so dangerous as the American currency. And also people are just kind of tired of the way the U.S. government is just kind of like arrogant and just pushes people around. I'm not saying that China won't be that way either, because the Red Chinese tend to be that way too, but since people are so tired of decades of America doing it, they're going to want a change until they find out that they're probably going to find out that the Chinese aren't any better, but it'll take them a little while to realize that.
I always thought it was going to be the Amero dollar. I mean, that's what I always thought was going to happen here in the United States and North America, that we're going to just, the Canadians, the Mexicans, and the United States dollar, we're all going to be replaced by the Amero dollar, and then the North American Union would be ushered in, and they would, that'd be the kind of their answer to the dollar crisis. That's why I thought the dollar crisis would actually equal the Amero dollar. And, with this immigration crisis that's going on, that's been fabricated, it looks like, to start, something along those lines. I think the Amero dollar would be what's going to happen after the dollar collapse. That's what I really think is going to happen, just because of the fact that,
I have an alternative viewpoint. Of course, you could be right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying the way I'm reading things is that the elite that are controlling things realize that Mexico and Canada have absolutely no desire to go to the Amero, because anything that any economic union like that, the United States is going to dominate, and Mexico and Canada don't want to be dominated by Americans. So and the United States doesn't want to go to the Amero either. So there's absolutely no desire anywhere in North America to go to that. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think that we will probably, they originally had planned that. I mean, that definitely was in the plans, was to stage us into a global currency. But I think that they're just going to allow the dollar to crash, and then at some point just leap us into a global currency. I don't think that we're going to go through the regional step. That's my take on it. I could be wrong, but I think that they're just going to allow us to suffer enough to the point that we want to join some global currency. But there will be a new dollar. There definitely, when the American dollar crashes, they're going to have to rescue the American dollar with a new dollar.
Yeah, you said these about these top New World Order people, that are apparently are working with the Chinese to make the Chinese the red plum. You said, and you said you got that right from an insider, right? Somebody that has worked with these people.
Well, Brent, well, I shouldn't have used his name, but anyway, my friend, well, it's a long story, but anyway, he's a very honorable man, and that's why he was put in a position of work, of taking care of their finances. Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't say he was an insider from the standpoint of belonging. He wasn't someone in the Illuminati. He was just somebody who was very good with finances that they trusted. And people don't understand about the elite. They think that these people are walking around with horns and long tails, and that they're just diabolical and evil. They don't realize that these people at the top appreciate honesty. They appreciate integrity. They appreciate people that are skilled. They're the ones that are hiring managers to take care of their portfolios. They're not trying to hire someone who's a scumbag. They want somebody who's got some integrity that's going to take care of their money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so the concern is taking care of their money, not, I get, they don't want, you just think that they would have somebody more like a minion almost, you know what I'm saying, that's doing their dirty work. That's what that's what you almost think, but, I guess since they're just, but since the concern that they're working with them, they have to have somebody that they think will turn on them. So, yeah, I get that. And it's interesting stuff, the secret, currency from China. And, there's a lot of similarities between, actually in all reality, the Chinese government and the United States government, when you analyze them, have a very similar structure, except one claims to be working with capitalism and one works to be working with communism. Really, all reality, they're both just corporatism is on both sides. It's a corporations own both governments, just all out. I mean, and nowadays they're becoming more, in China, they're becoming more openly non-communist. They used to try to fool the peasants there to make it seem like they owned the government when they had absolutely no ownership, really. The Chinese have these giant corporations that they actually have been funding since the Mao era. In fact, that's kind of the reason why the great, the reason why the 45 million died is because all of a sudden the Chinese government decided that they should stop funding or stop feeding the people out of the peasants that were growing the food. They took all their food and then gave it to the industrial workers so they could start this big giant industrial machine that China is today. And now that ended up becoming like the biggest genocide in history. And America, I mean, it's corporatism, fascism. It's authoritarian. That's the best way to describe. That's the whole new world order. It's controlling. They want to control like every aspect of everybody's life. If you have any closing comments, because I know we're coming to the end of 2 hours, and I'm going to leave the number real quick since we have like 3 minutes left. 347-205-9576. Anybody wants to ask Fritz Springmeier, I guess, any questions? And you have any?
Well, I want to give people a place where they can get in touch with me. You can become a follower or perhaps a friend on Facebook, as well as I have a website, pentracks.com, pentracks.com, pentracks.com. And so if you want to get my books, you want to learn more, I highly recommend my books and encourage people to continue to learn more. And so that I consider to be important.